Circle skirts have a reputation for being an easy, simple project because you can cut one out in a single piece. There are handy-dandy calculators online which will help you convert your waist measurement and desired skirt length into a pattern. Unfortunately, fabric bolts are only so wide because looms and knitting machines are only so wide. A bolt of cloth you might find in a fabric store is typically either a bit over 1 meter wide, 106.7 centimeters or 42 inches, or about 1.5 meters wide, 142.4 centimeters or 60 inches. I don't know exactly why, but I suspect it's based on the average comfortable reach of a human sitting in front of a loom, like how car axles and train tracks were influenced by the width of horse-drawn carts. You can find wider bolts of upholstery fabric, but that's often heavier and some people find it uncomfortable. Another common hack is to use bed sheets, which are typically lightweight and designed to be comfortable against human skin. Your experience may vary depending on personal sensory needs. Anyway, because fabric bolts are only so wide, some of these online circle skirt calculators will give up if your waist measurement is too wide for the length of circle skirt you want to fit on a standard fabric bolt. They'll recommend either a shorter circle skirt or doing a half or quarter circle skirt. One way around this is to cut 2 half circle skirts based on half your waist measurement, or 4 quarter circle skirts based on a quarter of your waist measurement, and sew these together into one circle. Again, this assumes your partial waist measurement is narrow enough for the skirt length you want to fit on the fabric. Another workaround, and maybe easier if, like me, you're not great at cutting smooth, even curves, is to divide the skirt into even more panels. The more sides you add to a shape, the easier it is to trick your brain into thinking, yeah, that's basically a circle. You'll need a protractor to draw these patterns, but I have helpfully done the math for you to create a 10, 12, 16, or 18 panel almost circle skirt. A circle, as many of us learned in grade school geometry class, has 360 degrees. To cut that up into equal slices, start by dividing 360 by the number of panels. So for a 10-panel skirt, a decagon, you'll need an isosceles triangle with a 36-degree tip. Except, of course, if you make a solid circle, or decagon, there will be nowhere for your body to go. So you need a rectangle, which is 1/10 your waist measurement and the length of the skirt you want. You can do a 20-panel skirt, alternating rectangles and triangles, or you can cut the triangle in half and turn the rectangle into an isosceles trapezoid. This basically looks like a triangle with the tip cut off. Each of the new right-angle triangles has an 18-degree point. Add that to the 90-degree corner of the rectangle, and the top corner of your trapezoid will be 108 degrees. The bottom corners will be 72 degrees. If you want the math on that, the angles of the 3 corners of a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. The original isosceles triangle had one 36-degree corner and 2 72-degree corners. 36 plus 72 plus 72 equals 180. When you cut it in half to make a right-angle triangle, the corners become 18 degrees, 90 degrees, and 72 degrees. 18 plus 72 plus 90 equals 180. I'll explain seam allowance at the end, after I've gone through making the base panels. For a 12-panel skirt, a dodecagon, divide 360 degrees by 12, which will get you 30 degrees. Again, you can make a 24-panel skirt with 30-degree triangles and with rectangles 1/12 of your waist measurement wide, or you can merge them into a trapezoid. The 15-degree triangles will convert into 105-degree corners at the top of the trapezoid, and the bottom corners will be 75 degrees. A 16-panel hexadecagon skirt gets tricky because here we have a decimal. 360 degrees divided by 16 is 22.5 degrees, which means the right angle triangles attached to the trapezium are 11.25 degrees at the corner. You can round that down to 11, but I made the executive decision in this demo to use 12 degrees instead, making the skirt slightly fuller. Technically, this means adding 0.75 degrees twice per panel, or 1.5 degrees per panel, which with 16 panels will add 24 degrees to the skirt. If you round down to 11, you'll reduce the skirt volume by 0.5 degrees per panel, which with 16 panels will reduce the skirt by 8 degrees. So if your heart is set on a 16-panel skirt, decide whether you want to do the precise decimal calculation, if you'd like a 352-degree near circle, or if you'd prefer a 384-degree more than circle, a 44/45 circle, or a 1 1/15 circle, if you will. Anyway, with 12-degree triangles, your trapezoid panels will be 102 degrees at both top corners, and 78 degrees at the two bottom corners, with the top edge being 1/16 the circumference of your waist. Now we get to the 18-sided octadecagon, which is very fun to say. 360 degrees divides by 18 into a nice and simple 20 degrees. You can do a 36-panel skirt with 20-degree triangles and rectangles 1/18 of your waist measurement, or you can do 18 trapezoid-shaped panels with 100-degree corners at the tops and 80-degree corners at the bottom. Once you have your basic pattern pieces drafted, you can add seam allowance. It's a good idea to write on your pattern whether you've added seam allowance to it or not, so you know whether to cut right at the edge or if you need to add a little more room. If you're doing a half pattern, to make absolutely sure both sides are symmetrical, it's also a good idea to indicate the fold line, or flip line. You'll need seam allowance down the sides of the trapezoid so you can sew your panels together. The waist and hem allowance can be added as plain rectangles, but some people like to copy the skirt angles onto the hem folds so that it's less likely to pucker from excess fabric. You don't need to make the waist or hem especially wide if you're planning to encase them in something else, like bias tape, or if you're planning to trim the corners into a true circle and add a facing, but it's still a good idea to have something for the waistband or hem facing to grab onto. All these seams are also handy if you want to insert pockets or a zipper. Side seam pockets are great, but I personally like having pockets a bit more to the front, so they're on my lap when I sit instead of trapped between my hip and the chair. I hope you enjoyed this guide. Go forth and make nearly circle skirts that are limited only by how much fabric you have, not how wide that fabric is.